A man vanished in the woods 4 years ago. No clues, no body, nothing. But when a young logger's chainsaw jammed inside a massive oak, cement began spilling out, and something human was buried inside. The truth about who put him there is darker than anyone in town ever imagined. Before we dive in, make sure you hit subscribe, because what we uncovered in this forest isn't just shocking, it's a warning. Now let's get into the story. In the small timber town of Redwater, progress was supposed to be a blessing. But for one man, a man who worked harder than everyone else, success became a death sentence. Elias Porter, the town's top timber trader and the only one who had managed to grow his business beyond the local market, vanished without a trace 4 years ago. One moment he was seen locking up his mill for the night, and the next, he was gone. No struggle. No footprints. No clues. Just an abandoned truck and a notebook of orders he never got to complete. Police searched. Volunteers searched. Even rival lumber crews, pretending to care, joined the search parties. But no one found anything. Redwater moved on. Sort of. Because rumors never stopped. Some said he ran away with money. Others said the woods swallowed him whole. But Elias's family never believed any of it. His wife insisted Elias would never leave his children. But the truth would come from the heart of the forest itself. 4 years after his disappearance, a young logger's chainsaw jammed while cutting into a giant, centuries-old oak tree. And what she found inside that tree revealed a horror no one ever imagined. Elias Porter wasn't just any timber trader. He was the timber trader. In a town where most lumber sellers struggled to pay bills, Elias was exporting high-quality oak and cedar to bigger cities. He owned better tools, better trucks, and a better mill. Everyone knew it. And not everyone liked it. Some said he was lucky. Others said he cheated. But the truth was simple. Elias worked double shifts, built relationships with suppliers outside town, and didn't bend to Redwater's good old boy networks. And jealousy grew like fungus. The town's older competitors, Frank Hollis, Dean Merrow, and the Warren brothers, were losing contracts left and right to Elias. Each of them had suffered financial blows. And each of them blamed Elias. Elias had no idea how deep their resentment ran. On the night he vanished, he closed up his mill at 9:17 p.m., according to the security footage. He walked to his truck. He opened the door. Then the camera glitched. When it recovered, Elias was gone. The sheriff dismissed the glitch as old wiring. Elias's wife, Miriam, believed otherwise. Search teams combed the woods. They found tire tracks, but tire tracks were everywhere in a timber town. They found cigarette butts, but everyone smoked. They found broken branches, but that could be anything. After 3 weeks, the sheriff declared it a missing person case with no evidence of foul play. But people whispered. Some said they saw Elias arguing with Frank Hollis earlier that week. Others claimed Dean Merrow was bitter after losing his logging contract to Elias. But without proof, all suspicions faded. Elias's family held a memorial service a year later, even though they never found a body. But the truth wasn't buried underground. It was upright, towering, silent, wrapped in bark and leaves. And for 4 long years, no one knew it. 4 years later, 23-year-old Marlene Dorsey started her first week as a licensed logger. She had grown up around chainsaws, but this was her first job on the Hollis timber crew, ironically owned by the same Frank Hollis who once despised Elias Porter. On the second day, her crew moved deep into Redwater Forest to remove several dying oaks. Most were easy cuts. But one tree, a massive ancient oak towering nearly 80 feet, looked different. Its bark was unusually smooth. Its base had strange discoloration. And something about it felt wrong. "Just an old tree with root rot," Frank told her. "Cut it." Marlene revved the saw and pressed into the trunk. 2 inches in, her chainsaw screamed and locked. Not from hitting a metal wedge. Not from hitting an embedded nail. This was something different. Something inside the tree. She killed the saw and backed away, confused. Frank walked over, irritated. "What did you jam it on?" "I don't know," Marlene said. "But it's not wood." Frank's face stiffened, just for a fraction of a second. "Get the wedges. We'll split it." Two other men approached, but their expressions weren't of curiosity. They looked scared. Frank barked louder. "I said split it." As axes cut into the trunk, a thick gray substance began to crumble out. It wasn't sap. It wasn't rot. It was cement, packed inside the oak like a mold. "What the hell?" one logger whispered. But Marlene noticed something worse. Behind the cement, something pale was buried in the hollow. Something shaped like a hand. The men froze. Even Frank stepped back as the hollow widened. Marlene grabbed a pry bar and chipped away more cement. When a pocket collapsed, a flood of gray dust poured out, along with something unmistakably human. A forearm. Still wearing a watch. A watch Miriam Porter had described to police 4 years ago. Marlene gasped. That's Elias Porter." The older men exchanged looks. Not shock, fear. Frank shouted, "Everyone stop! No more cutting!" But it was too late. The cement cavity opened wider, revealing Elias's entire upper body, twisted, trapped upright, arms pinned to his sides inside the hollow of the oak. His mouth was frozen open, filled with cement. His eyes were sealed shut. His spine curved unnaturally, as if he'd struggled violently in his final moments. The men froze. Even Frank stepped back as the hollow widened. Marlene grabbed a pry bar and chipped away more cement. When a pocket collapsed, a flood of gray dust poured out, along with something unmistakably human. A forearm. Still wearing a watch. A watch Miriam Porter had described to police 4 years ago. Marlene gasped. That's Elias Porter." The older men exchanged looks. Not shock, fear. Frank shouted, "Everyone stop! No more cutting!" But it was too late. The cement cavity opened wider, revealing Elias's entire upper body, twisted, trapped upright, arms pinned to his sides inside the hollow of the oak. His mouth was frozen open, filled with cement. His eyes were sealed shut. His spine curved unnaturally, as if he'd struggled violently in his final moments. Marlene stumbled backward, trembling. What happened to him?" Frank wiped his forehead, voice cracking. "Call the sheriff." But Marlene noticed something. Frank hadn't reacted like someone seeing a corpse for the first time. He reacted like someone who expected it. Within an hour, Sheriff Roden arrived. He took one look at Elias's body and swallowed hard. His first sentence was not normal. Not secure the scene. Not call state police. Not block the area. Instead, he muttered under his breath, barely audible, "Oh God, they actually did it." But Marlene heard it. And so did 2 other loggers. The sheriff quickly regained composure. "Everyone back away. This whole site is now a crime scene." Frank tried to keep the crew distant, but no one moved. They wanted answers. Marlene whispered, "Sheriff, who's they?" He avoided her eyes. She pressed again. "Sheriff, who buried that man in a tree?" The sheriff's silence gave her the answer. He knew. He had known for years. The truth unfolded slowly, but every piece was uglier than the last. 4 years earlier, Elias Porter had won a massive timber contract with a major construction company from out of state. That contract would have destroyed every small logging business in Redwater, especially the struggling crews owned by Frank Hollis, Dean Merrow, and the Warren brothers. They confronted Elias privately, demanding he step back from the deal. Elias refused. Days later, Frank's men claimed they saw Elias drive out of town. The sheriff accepted their statement without question. What really happened was monstrous. According to a witness who later came forward, Elias was ambushed at his own mill by the 4 rival timber sellers. They beat him unconscious and loaded him into a truck. They drove deep into Redwater forest, to the very oak tree Elias himself had once called the oldest living thing in the county. There, they forced him into the hollow trunk, still alive. They poured cement over him to ensure he never escaped. They sealed the tree. And the sheriff, who owed thousands of dollars to Frank Hollis and the Warren brothers, agreed to classify the disappearance as voluntary. It was the perfect murder. No digging, no grave, no body, just a tree no one would cut. Until 4 years later. What none of them expected was that the giant oak would eventually decline due to internal damage from the cement. It became part of a removal order, and Marlene cut into it, exposing everything. Within hours of the discovery, word spread across Redwater. Elias's wife collapsed when she heard. His children, now older, stood silently beside her, their faces drained of color but filled with something new, closure. State investigators arrived the next morning. Frank Hollis tried to distance himself, claiming he had no idea what was inside the tree. But cracks formed fast. One logger admitted Frank warned them, "Never touch that oak." Another admitted the sheriff told crews to avoid felling older hollows. A third revealed Dean Merrow once bragged, during a drunken night, that Elias would never bother them again. Within 48 hours, investigators uncovered the financial motive, the debts, and the suspicious phone calls made the night Elias vanished. The sheriff resigned before he could be arrested. Frank Hollis tried to flee the county but was caught at the state line. The Warren brothers confessed first. The pressure cracked them. Dean Merrow held out until DNA evidence from the cement matched Elias's blood found on an old tool in his mill. All 4 men were charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy, evidence tampering, abuse of a corpse, corruption, obstruction of justice. Marlene, the young logger, became the accidental hero of the entire town. Redwater held a second ceremony for Elias, this time with his body recovered and the truth exposed. Miriam placed Elias's watch, cleaned and restored, into her pocket as she whispered, "You're home now." But even after justice, a question lingered. How long would Elias have survived in that tree? Did he wake up inside the hollow? Did he scream before the cement reached his mouth? No one wanted the answers. The woods kept them. Redwater Forest still holds many secrets, but none as horrifying as the truth that stood hidden inside that giant oak tree. For 4 years, people walked past it, hiked near it, even cut trees around it, never knowing a man was entombed inside, sealed in cement, murdered over greed and jealousy. Elias Porter's death revealed the darkest parts of human nature, that envy can grow thicker than bark, and that some people will bury the successful rather than improve themselves. What brought justice was not an investigation, not a confession, not technology, but a young logger with a chainsaw and a stubborn old oak who refused to stay silent forever. Sometimes, the forest gives up its dead. Sometimes, the truth grows in the very wood people try to hide it in. And sometimes, all it takes is one cut to expose everything.